Hello everyone, this is Dave from Dave's Recent Things. Fall, 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 or autumn, autumn, autumn. Whichever way you say it, fall or autumn is in the stores right now, and they are full of pumpkins, those brown colors, the orange colors, the deep yellows and deep reds, and I am loving it. Of course, Halloween's right around the corner, which is one of my favorite times of year, apart from Christmas as well. Anyways, let's get back to fall. Today, we are going to be using the Dollar Tree pumpkin wreath frame to come up with 3 different styles of pumpkin wreaths. Why don't I just get started and I'll show you how I made them. Here is that Dollar Tree wire wreath frame. And with this frame, I'm going to be using this little welcome sign with a little scarecrow on top, these little sunflower floral picks, green ribbon. This is 2.5-inch wired ribbon, some twine that I had left over, and I'm going to be using this Dollar Tree shirt. This is an orange color, and then of course I've got some aluminum foil and my regular crafting utensils to make this project. I am starting out, I'm just laying the t-shirt flat and I'm cutting out the back side of the shirt. So I just have one large piece of fabric. And then I'm just gonna lay it over the wreath frame and add a little bit of glue right in the middle so it doesn't move on me. I just want it to stay in place, make sure it's gonna cover the entire frame. And I'm just kind of adding glue right at the middle, at the bottom and the top. And then I'm going to start gluing it all the way around the frame. And I'm just adding the glue right onto the wire, pulling and pushing over that fabric right into the glue to make sure it's nice and tight. So I do want it to be pulled nice and tight. And of course, I'm just adding the little bits here and then cutting them off. I don't need that excess, and I'm just kind of cleaning up the back with my scissors. Once that's all done, I have my wire wreath frame all wrapped. We're going to make a little bit of a bow today, and this is 2.5-inch wire, and I'm going to cut these pieces at 16 inches. So I'm going to do a couple of those at 16 inches, and then I'm going to come in and do another cut at about 10 inches. So our ribbon lengths, I'm going to cut 4 pieces at 16 inches, and then I'm going to cut another piece at around 8 to 10 inches. And I'm just going to create little discs, and I'm going to be using my stapler again today. I've shown this in a past video. I love how fast this is, and I love how I don't burn my fingers on the hot glue. So I'm just making little rings with all of my ribbon pieces. You'll see I have the 2 lengths here and then the one shorter one. And then the 2 other longer lengths are going to be our tails. Now I do end up hot gluing these 2 pieces together into making a little bit of a cross. And then that little piece I'm just going to put right in the center there using my little handy dandy tool so I don't burn my fingers. And you can see our little bow taking shape now. And our other 2 pieces I am going to be placing right on the back side to make my tails. And I'm just going to hot glue those down as well. And watch those fingers, that hot glue does seep through. Here is our little bow all ready to be attached to our wire wreath frame. I will trim off the edges and do dovetails, but I'll do that later on once it's on the wreath. This time around, I wanted to make the stem a little bit longer, so I'm just adding some aluminum foil with some hot glue. I'm going to wrap that around, and then I'm going to create a longer stem just by molding it with my hands, kind of twisting it around, seeing the shape that I want. Once I'm happy with the shape, I'm going to use that twine and I'm just going to wrap that all the way around that aluminum foil stem that we just made, and I'm going to glue it every now and then. And once I'm done, I'll add a little more glue just to secure the end, and then I'm just going to chop off the excess and I have our little stem all made and ready to go. And of course, now's my favorite time. We're going to decorate our wreath. I usually lay everything out first. Here I'm taking off the scarecrow head and just kind of taking off all the tags and excess. And then I'm just going to kind of play around with it a little bit, trying to see where I want the scarecrow head, where I want to place my bow. This is why I didn't cut the bow tails. I just kind of wanted to figure out where I wanted to put everything first before I did anything. And once I figure out where I want to place my bow and my scarecrow, I just start gluing it all down in place. And then I start taking off those flower heads, cutting my leaves, making little piles of everything that I want to attach. And then I just start using my hot glue gun, and I'm just going to attach all those beautiful sunflowers and those leaves right there. Just kind of willy-nilly. I don't really have a plan. I have an image in my head of what I want to happen with this, and I just kind of keep going with it, adding those leaves, adding those sunflowers, using my hot glue gun. And then of course over on the right hand side is a little bit wrinkled, so I'm going to add and cover that. Now I'm just finishing off those tails with a little dovetail, and here is our little wreath all done using that Dollar Tree pumpkin wreath. I just love how cute this turned out, and I love how I stumbled across that orange t-shirt and used it to cover that wreath frame. Look, there's our little skeleton, our scarecrow friend, the bow, our sunflowers, that extended stem that we made, and of course that orange t-shirt. I just love how this turned out, and I hope you did too. For pumpkin number 2, again, we're using that pumpkin frame. I had some 10-inch leftover mesh that I'm going to be using. This is poly mesh that I got. I can't remember where I got it. And I had these picks coming from the Dollar Tree. They have pumpkins and acorns in them. They're just called Maple Bouquet. And then I had some ribbon as well. And we're going to see which one we used today. Some come from the Dollarama, some come from the Dollar Tree, and my regular crafting utensils to create this project. I'm going to start off with cutting my deco mesh. This is 10-inch wide deco mesh. I have 2 different colors, and I'm going to be cutting them at 7.5-inch lengths. So it's going to be 10 inches by 7.5 inches. And here you can see I'm just using my rotary cutter. You can use a pair of scissors if you want, whichever works for you and whatever you have on hand. So for the deco mesh lengths, I'm using the 10-inch wide deco mesh, and I'm cutting 9 lengths at 7.5 inches. So I'm creating 3 bundles of 3 pieces of deco mesh in each bundle. Now it's time to assemble those bundles. I'm taking 2 of one color, 1 of another color, and I'm going to create my bundle. I'm just using the curly loop method, and all you're going to do is take that deco mesh, roll it into a tube, place it in between your fingers, hold it there, and then we can start with our second piece doing the exact same thing, rolling it in a tube. Once you're done rolling it up, place it in between your fingers to hold it, grab a pipe cleaner, place it right in the middle, transfer the deco mesh to your other hand, and then give it a couple of good twists. And that creates our little bundle here. And I'm going to be creating 3 bundles. This is the second one I'm creating. So I'm using 2 of the pattern deco mesh and 1 of the solid just to mix it up a little bit. And I'm doing the same pattern. So I'm rolling up my deco mesh into little tubes. Once I roll it into a tube, I'm going to place it in between those 2-piece fingers just to hold it in place. If you don't want to use your fingers, you can use a large paper clip or clothespin. Grab that pipe cleaner and then just twist it around the middle and secure it right in place, and you're creating another bundle. Once I have all 3 of my bundles ready to go, I'm going to attach them right in the middle on the bottom wire in between the 2 wires. Now what I learned was once you attach it, that deco mesh bundle starts to flip all around. So what I did was I tied it right to the bottom, but then what I did was I took those 2 end pieces of pipe cleaner and I wrapped them around those 2 surrounding wires that are going up and down. And that's going to hold that deco mesh in place. If you don't do that, or if you don't glue it in place, that deco mesh is going to fall forward and backwards. So here I figured out a little way to kind of keep it secured so it doesn't fall back and forth. A really nice, easy way to do it. And now I can just play around placing that deco mesh how I want it, coming in, coming out. And once I have that all figured out, I'm going to attach my other pieces on there, and I'm going to place them one space, and then I'm going to place them into the other one. So I have my deco mesh bundle in the center. I'm going to leave a space, and then I'm going to add another piece of deco mesh bundle right in the space after that. Again, I'm wrapping it around that bottom wire. Then I'm taking those 2 pipe cleaner stems, wrapping it around the 2 wires surrounding it, just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere and I have it in there nice and secured. Once I twist it, I'm going to cut off that excess, and then I'm just going to move the deco mesh loops around just to kind of place them where I want them so they kind of fan out and take up that space as well. Almost like fluffing it up. Now, of course, is time for our decorations. I love doing this part. I am actually cutting all of my stems, the floral picks, and those leaves, and I'm just kind of placing them in little piles just so I can use them and they're ready for me to go and I can see how much I'm using. Usually I do a dry run, or what I like to call a dry one, where we place everything down without gluing it. But I just kind of had an idea in my head and I kind of went with it. So I'm just gluing down the leaves first, and that's going to be our base for our decorations. I want to create a nice, colorful, fall-themed base. And once those leaves are all in there, I'm going to be using the little berries, acorns, and pumpkins to fill in the rest. And those are going to be our focal points for the wreath. I love these little floral picks at the Dollar Tree. Go pick them up. They're great. They're easy to work with, and they're so colorful. Once I get the last of the berries in there, you can kind of see how this is all taking shape. And now it's time to create a big, beautiful bow for this wreath. I am using a couple of different patterns. Here you see I have a pumpkin pattern I'm going to be using as red as well, and I'm going to be using cuts at 24 inches. I'm going to be cutting the pumpkin ribbon and this solid burgundy ribbon at 24 inches, and then I'm going to do another cut at 18 inches with using the pumpkin and the burgundy as well. I will give you all the cut lengths in a little bit. Hold tight, it's coming. And then more at the 14-inch mark. So these are all the cuts that I'm going to be using for this bow, and I'm using 2 different ribbons for this bow. So I am using 3 cuts at 24 inches. There's going to be 2 cuts at 18 inches and 5 cuts at 14 inches using both ribbon number 1 and ribbon number 2. Of course, you can choose whichever ribbon pattern and color you want, but these are the cut lengths that I am using today, where ribbon number 1 is the pumpkin wreath and ribbon number 2 is the solid burgundy wreath. And then I'm going to create rings just like we did right in the beginning. These are just wrapping it around and then taking that stapler once again and stapling the 2 ends together, creating a little ring. You don't have to use the stapler. You can use your hot glue gun. I just found that this is so much easier, and it does stay in place as well. So I'm doing that for all of my ribbon except for 2 of the 14-inch in the pumpkin pattern and 2 of the 14-inch in the burgundy color. Once I get everything into rings, I start arranging it. I'm laying 1 flat and then 2 crisscross, and I'm alternating between each pumpkin wreath and each of the solid ribbon, putting them on angles, and then I'm using the 24-inch, and now I'm using the 14-inch, just kind of making it look pretty. And once I have that all in a pile there, I'm going to take my pipe cleaner, flip it over on the other side, and then I'm going to give the middle just a really good squish to hold everything in place. Once that's all done, I'm going to take that pipe cleaner and I'm just going to really pull tight, make sure those ribbons don't go anywhere, and I'm just going to wrap that around a couple of times and place that to the side for our tails. Now with our tails, these are the 14-inch ones. I'm just going to cut little dovetails right at the end. I am using 2 of the pumpkin and 2 of the solid color. Again, these are the 14-inch ones we cut earlier. And then I'm just going to squish that center, bend it a little bit, and then add that to the 2 stems of those pipe cleaners. Then we can flip it over, arrange everything, fluff up those little loops at the top, arrange how we want everything to lay out onto our wreath, and we are done with our little bow. Unfortunately, I had some camera issues. It did not record how I attached this bow onto my wreath frame, but I just wrapped it around the top with some hot glue, and then here we go. We have our tails intertwining in between those wires. We have that beautiful bouquet at the bottom, and I added a little pumpkin detail right at the top with my bow. I loved working with these ribbons, and I loved working with these floral picks from the Dollar Tree, and we have a little deco mesh in there to help with the backdrop of our beautiful leaves and pumpkins. I just love how this wreath turned out, and I hope you do as well. Our third and final pumpkin using that pumpkin wreath frame, and I'm going to be using these paper lunch bags along with some acrylic paint. There's orange, tan, brown, and a burgundy color or red color, a paintbrush, and I'm going to be using my hot glue gun today for this project. I'm starting off with our lunch bags, and what I'm going to be doing with these is just opening them up, and then I'm just going to flatten it down. I'm not cutting it or ripping it at this point. I'm just opening them up, and I am just putting my hand in there, laying it down flat, and then what I'm going to do once I have 2 pieces laid down flat, I'm just going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to add a line of hot glue right at the open portion, and then I'm going to place the other one with the open ends facing together right on top and laying that down. You don't have to worry about being precise or neat because we're going to, as you can see, crinkle it all together, and we're going to really twist, making a nice long piece of crinkled paper for our pumpkin wreath. I'm going to be creating 8 of these in total. That's going to cover 1 per wire, so that's 1 paper bag per wire, and I'm just repeating the same process over and over again, gluing them together, and then once they're all glued together, I squish them down into little logs, if you will, and then we're going to attach those logs onto our wire wreath frame. Here is our frame once again. I'm going to take one of our little paper logs and I'm just going to attach it onto the wires. That's why we have 8 of them. I'm going to just add a little hot glue right onto the wire, and then I'm going to wrap that paper right around and attaching it to the wire. Now, hot glue is hot. I burn myself a lot with doing this, so please be careful. Watch those fingers. It is a little hot. As we all know, as crafters know, hot glue is very hot, but I'm just warning you, I did burn myself a lot during this one. I mean, I was going too fast and I wasn't paying attention. It's my own fault, but just be cautious. I don't want anybody hurting themselves. To wrap it around, I just use a little bit more hot glue, chop off the excess of those paper bags, and then just add hot glue to the back. I'm not worried aesthetically how this looks at the back, because really we're not going to be seeing it once everything is done and over with. Unless you look at the backside, obviously. But here I am just continuing on, getting those wires covered with our little paper bag bundles. And then the final result, so far, we have all of our bundles on those wires, and now I'm going to fill in our empty spaces. I'm going to do kind of the exact same thing as opening up those paper bags, but I'm not going to attach them together. I'm just going to use one at a time, and I'm going to crinkle them up like we did with the previous ones, and then I'm just going to fit them right inside those open spaces or those negative spaces using glue to attach it to the little wrapped up paper bag we had previously. So you can kind of see here, I'm just laying it right on top of that other paper bag, gluing it right in place, and then you see how that fills up that negative space really nicely. Again, I'm just opening up the paper bag, squishing it all together, giving it a good couple of twists, and then I'm going to glue that down on the latest piece of paper and filling in that negative space. And I do take my time with this. I kind of want to make sure I have everything covered and there's no openings left. There's about maybe anywhere between 2 and 4 pieces, I shouldn't say pieces, of the bag, paper bags that I used to fill in each negative space. So it all depended on how closely I twisted it, etc., etc. So I did buy 2 bundles of the 30 paper bags and I used most of them. Here we see how it is all together, and now I'm going to create another longer stem, and I just opened up a paper bag, hot glued it to the original stem, and then I just gave it a couple of really good twists at the end, creating a new longer stem for our pumpkin. So far, here is our paper pumpkin wreath, all ready to be decorated. And again, I spoke of technical issues earlier. Unfortunately, I lost the footage of me originally painting this pumpkin. What I did was I mixed together some Mod Podge orange paint and a little bit of brown paint, and I painted the entire pumpkin orange, and then I painted the stem a brown color. And while everything was still wet, I poured some of that original mixture, orange mixture, into a plate, added more brown, and now I'm going to add some low lights to our pumpkin, or some little rustic looking worn out pumpkin features. And I'm just using a large paintbrush, applying it willy-nilly. There's no method to my madness. I'm just kind of going into the little crevices, creating some interest with our pumpkin so it's not just one color. Of course, it's dirty work, but somebody has to do it. And to create a little bit of a bow, if you will, I'm going to create my own little raffia. You can use raffia paper if you want, but I'm just cutting up a paper bag into strips. I'm going to crunch it all together in my hand to get it all wrinkly. And then once I start pulling them apart, I take the really long pieces, add them into a little pile, as you can see at the bottom here. These are the longer pieces that I have. And then the medium-sized pieces I'm going to leave right down below, and those are going to be the tails. So those long pieces you see here, right at the top, those are going to be the bow, and these shorter pieces at the bottom that are hanging down, those are going to be the tails of our bow. What I'm going to do to attach them all together is just use a little cable tie, and then I'm going to fold over those ends of the longer pieces of paper right into the center, and then I'm going to attach that bow using this little cable tie right in the center, cut off that excess, and with a little hot glue and an extra piece of paper, I'm just going to cover that cable tie so we don't see that, wrap it around a couple of times around that bow, and then we have at the very end a little more hot glue just to keep that all nice and secure together. And once we're done that, we have our little homemade raffia bow. Very rustic, very rough looking, but I think it suits this pumpkin so well. Adding some hot glue towards the back, placing it right where the stem is, holding it down until it dries, and then once everything is dry, we have our little rustic pumpkin made out of paper bags with our little homemade raffia bow. I just love how this pumpkin turned out. It's very rustic, it's very worn in. I just love how this looks, and I hope you enjoy making this pumpkin as well. Here we are with our first pumpkin with our little friendly scarecrow and our sunflowers made with this orange Dollar Tree shirt. I just love how this came out. I love how the ribbing came out with the wire, and then of course our Deco mesh pumpkin frame with that large bow and those beautiful colors of those floral picks and the backdrop of the Deco mesh in the brown colors. And our final pumpkin that we just did, our paper bag or paper lunch bag pumpkin, and I just love that rustic look of these pumpkins. Which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments right down below. Thank you so much for joining me today with another pumpkin wreath video. I love making these every single year. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified whenever I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye for now.